What happens when a billionaire CEO drives his own rideshare car and finds out his drivers haven't been paid in weeks? Carter Prescott never planned to run a rideshare company. He inherited it 2 years ago after his father passed, along with 6 other businesses in logistics, food, and transport. His father had built it from scratch, but Carter had always been more interested in software. Still, the company was his now, and he couldn't ignore it. The rideshare division had 7 dispatch hubs across the state, each handling hundreds of drivers. Carter had been reviewing reports for weeks on time, the earnings were up, and customer feedback looked fine. But something didn't sit right. He kept hearing vague excuses when asking about driver retention. Payout delays were chalked up to bank issues. One driver had even sent a handwritten letter to HQ saying he hadn't been paid on time for 3 straight weeks. That's when Carter decided to go undercover. He'd never met the field teams himself. Most of them had been hired after the company expanded last year. The dispatch centers were run like franchises, but still under corporate control. Carter had his assistant set up a fake profile. His name would be Eli, a new trainee driver. He'd start at the busiest hub in the city, Northwood Dispatch. If anything was going wrong, it would show up there first. He shaved his beard, dyed his hair darker, and wore thick-rimmed glasses. His usual polished look was replaced with a faded hoodie, worn jeans, and a baseball cap. No one at Northwood had ever met him, he made sure of that. The only people who knew his face were at HQ, and they weren't talking. He walked into the Northwood office just before noon. The place was cramped, loud, and smelled like burnt coffee. Phones buzzed, drivers came and went, and a tired-looking woman at the front desk barely looked up. "You knew?" she asked. "Yeah. Eli," Carter said. "Starting today. Go see Mason in the back. He handles onboarding." Carter nodded and made his way past worn-out chairs and a busted vending machine. A guy in his 30s sat at a desk, feet up, watching a video on his phone. He looked up once, unimpressed. "You the new guy?" "Yup." Mason tossed the tablet onto the desk. "Read this sign at the bottom. You'll start with pickup runs near the airport. Just keep the app on. You got a car?" "Yeah. Clean. Full tank. Good. You'll be fine," Mason said, already looking back at his phone. "Oh, and don't expect your first payout till 2 weeks in. We're backed up." "Backed up?" Carter asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah. Dispatch handles all that. System's slow. Don't worry about it." Carter didn't respond. He signed the form and headed out. By 3 o'clock, he'd already taken 5 rides. A single mom headed to her second job. A college student running late. A retired man who talked about his grandkids. Everyone had a story, and all of them tipped more than he expected. After dropping off his 6th rider, Carter pulled into a gas station to grab water. Another driver was filling up at the next pump. She looked worn down but smiled when she saw him. "New driver?" she asked. "Yeah. Just started today. Name's Eli." "I'm Harper," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Been here 6 months. You from Northwood?" "Moved in last week," Carter lied. "Just a heads up," Harper said, glancing around. "Don't trust dispatch when they say payouts are delayed because of system issues. They hold our pay on purpose." Carter blinked. "Why would they do that?" "They sit on it. Mason says it's logistics, but I've seen drivers go 2-3 weeks without pay. One guy got evicted last month. He quit and never came back. That's not legal, right?" Harper gave a tired laugh. "Probably not. But what are we gonna do? Most folks here just need the money. We can't afford to miss work." Carter clenched his jaw. "Has anyone reported it?" "To who?" "HR's a joke. Mason says if we don't like it, we can leave." Carter thanked her and got back in his car. His hands trembled slightly on the wheel. The next few days, Carter worked from early morning till night. He rotated between dispatch hubs, posing as a new driver each time. All 7 locations had the same story. Mason and 2 others, including a district manager named Troy, were all in on it. Drivers were being told their payouts were late due to technical errors. But Carter checked the back-end system in secret. After hours there was no glitch. The money was there. It just wasn't being sent. Some drivers were sleeping in their cars. One guy, Marvin, had a baby girl named Grace. He drove 18 hours a day and still hadn't been paid for the last 9. Carter watched Marvin eat a gas station sandwich in silence one night. "How long you been waiting on pay?" he asked quietly. Marvin looked down. 12 days. Rent's late. My wife's stressed out. I just keep driving. Carter's stomach turned. These weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They were people. Families. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, he would walk back into Northwood Dispatch not as Eli the driver, but as Carter Prescott, owner. Carter arrived at Northwood Dispatch just after sunrise. He wore a pressed navy button-down, a tailored overcoat, and polished brown boots. No disguise. No glasses. He walked straight through the front door. The same woman who'd barely acknowledged him as Eli 3 days ago now stood up from her chair, startled. "Can I help? I'm here to speak with Mason. Let him know Carter Prescott is waiting." Her mouth opened slightly, but she nodded and picked up the phone. Carter didn't wait for permission. He headed down the hallway, past the vending machine and the cracked tile floor, past the driver check-in wall with outdated flyers, and straight into the back office. Mason looked up from his desk, holding a half-eaten granola bar. "Can I?" Carter shut the door behind him. "You've been delaying driver payments," he said. Mason froze. "I've looked at the payout logs. The funds are available. There's no processing delay. You've been sitting on the money." Mason's voice tightened. "I don't know what you think you found, but you've been threatening drivers who ask about it. You told at least 3 they could quit if they didn't like it. One of them has a newborn." Mason stood up slowly. "You can't just barge in here and, I own this company." Silence. Then Mason sat back down like the air had left him. Carter didn't yell. He didn't need to. "You're finished here. Effective immediately. You'll receive a formal notice from legal by noon. I want your badge and office key now." Mason's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his desk drawer. "I'd also suggest you stay off the premises. If I find any trace of retaliation toward the staff, I won't hesitate to press charges." He left the office without another word and returned to the front. The woman at the desk looked up, confused. "What's your name?" Carter asked. "Dana. You're going to need a new dispatch manager. Until then, I'll be using the back office. Could you let the drivers know I'd like to meet with them in groups of 5, every 30 minutes starting now? Paid time." Dana blinked. "Yes, sir. And Dana, get yourself a real lunch today." "On the company card." She nodded slowly, still processing what just happened. By mid-morning, Carter had spoken with over 24 drivers. Some had questions. Others just wanted to vent. Most were cautious, unsure if this sudden attention meant anything real. A man named Reggie leaned forward with his cap in his hands. "I've been doing this full-time since the pandemic. I can handle long hours. But when the pay stops showing up, you start wondering if it's even worth it." "When did it start for you?" Carter asked. 3 weeks ago. I thought it was just me. Then I started hearing the same thing from others." He glanced toward the hallway. "We didn't know who to trust. You can trust me now. I should have been here sooner." A younger driver, Dahlia, spoke up next. "I reported the delay last month. Some guy from corporate told me it was a system bottleneck, and that I should be patient. I stopped calling after that." "Who told you that?" "Guy named Troy. Said he oversaw the region." Carter's jaw tightened. "Thanks for telling me." By early afternoon, Carter had reviewed payroll records and traced the approval delays to a regional manager, Troy Walters. The patterns were clear. Weekly payouts were being manually postponed under vague tags like pending reconciliation or batch hold, even though none of them were flagged by the finance team at HQ. He called his assistant, Lauren, and asked her to schedule a meeting with Troy that same day at the Westwood Dispatch office. "Don't tell him I'm coming. Just say someone from the executive team wants to meet in person," Carter said. "Understood." "Anything else?" "Pull every complaint filed through the driver app in the last 60 days. I want to know how many mentioned Troy or his team." He arrived at Westwood by 4. The lobby was cleaner, newer, more polished than Northwood. But the drivers waiting outside told the same stories. Night shifts with no overtime. Delayed payouts. No response from regional support. Troy was already in the conference room, arms crossed, wearing a branded fleece and Bluetooth headset. "You must be the exec they sent," he said casually. "I didn't catch your name." Carter closed the door behind him. "Carter Prescott." Troy's expression shifted instantly. "I'm not here for small talk," Carter said. "You've been signing off on payout delays for over 70 drivers. I've reviewed the logs. You used manual holds on funds that were already cleared." Troy raised his hand slightly. "I was following protocol. Some of the reports didn't reconcile, no. They were fine. I double-checked with finance." "You added delays yourself?" Troy's voice dropped. "Look, sometimes we stagger payments when there's a surge in withdrawals. It keeps the center's reserve stable." "You're not a bank," Carter said flatly. "You're lying to drivers to preserve your own metrics. I saw the bonus structure. You get a quarterly bonus for maintaining retention efficiency. That number stays higher if drivers don't quit. And they don't quit if they think their pay's just around the corner." Troy's face flushed. "You manipulated livelihoods to inflate a number on a spreadsheet. That's not just unethical. It's cruel." "I was under pressure," Troy said. "You have no idea what it's like out here. We're undermanned, underbudgeted." Carter cut him off. "You're fired. Immediately. Security will walk you out." Troy stood up, jaw clenched. "You'll regret this. You think these drivers will suddenly be loyal just because you showed up for a day?" "No," Carter said calmly. "But they'll know someone finally listened." He left the room and motioned for the assistant manager, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard. "You're in charge for the next 72 hours. I want a full audit of every complaint filed under Troy's tenure. If you need help, I'll send someone from corporate. But no more delays. Everyone gets paid by morning." She nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, Mr. Prescott." Back in the car, Carter didn't turn on the radio. He just sat for a moment, hands resting on the wheel. The company wasn't broken, it had been neglected. And that was on him. That evening, he returned to Northwood. The parking lot was quieter now. A few drivers were still out on runs, but most had filtered through. Dana met him at the door. "They've been talking," she said. "Word's spreading. Some drivers are calling this the first good day in months." "I'm not looking for praise," Carter said. "Just progress. There's one more thing," Dana added, pulling a folded piece of paper from her desk. "Marvin left this. Said he didn't want to say it out loud." Carter unfolded it. "Thank you for seeing us. Nobody ever really sees us." He folded the note and put it in his coat pocket. Tomorrow, he'd meet with the finance director about restructuring the payout system so no single manager could delay payments again. After that, he'd implement new oversight at every dispatch hub. But tonight, he'd drive one last shift. Not as Carter Prescott owner. Just a driver, behind the wheel. Carter's final ride ended just after midnight. The passenger was an exhausted nurse heading home after a double shift. She thanked him for the quiet drive and stepped out into the rain without a word of complaint. He watched her disappear into the dim lobby of a worn apartment block, then pulled away slowly. By morning, he was back at headquarters. The finance director, Anya, was already waiting in the executive conference room. She stood when he walked in, tall, composed, and sharp in a fitted blazer. She didn't waste time. I reviewed the payout pathways. The manual override functions were never supposed to be in field hands, she said. Those permissions were granted by a former VP who left last year. We didn't catch it during the system transition. Carter leaned against the end of the long table. How many people had access? 4 regional managers. 2 are gone. Troy and 1 other still active. Mason had login credentials through a back channel probably shared under the table. Revoke all of it. I want a new system live by end of week. One where only finance can delay payments, and only with written justification. Anya nodded. Understood. There's another issue. Some of the hubs don't use the updated timekeeping standards. Drivers clock in through a third-party app that doesn't sync with our backend. That's how missed hours went unnoticed. Carter's jaw flexed. Who approved that? Local dispatch leads. It saved them time on scheduling. But it's a mess. We can't verify hours in 3 of the 7 hubs. He crossed his arms. We fixed that before payroll closes Friday. No exceptions. And I want those drivers paid with hazard bonuses. Retroactive. Anya's brow lifted. You're sure? They've earned it. He left her with the numbers and headed for the operations floor. The space was quiet, but tense word of the firings had spread. People looked up as he passed, unsure whether to make eye contact. He stopped at the corner desk where Lauren, his assistant, was typing. Pull every driver who's been flagged for low productivity in the last 60 days, he said. I want to know who's been marked down unfairly. She nodded, already on it. He moved next to the driver support office, a glass-walled room previously used to field complaints. It had become a ghost station, desks empty, phones silent. He walked inside and turned on the lights. Moments later, he waved in a young man hovering just outside. You work here? Carter asked. Yes, sir. I'm Mateo. I used to handle driver assistance. But we were told to route most calls straight to voicemail and only escalate if someone threatened legal action. Who told you that? Dispatch directors. Said we were creating dependency if we answered every request. Carter sat across from him. How many calls went unanswered? Hundreds. Maybe more. Drivers stopped trying after a while. Some of them left voicemails begging for callbacks. We weren't allowed to respond. Carter's voice was calm, but his eyes were locked. You're running this office now, Mateo. You'll answer every call, every message. If you need more people, let me know. Mateo blinked. I thought I was getting laid off. Not anymore. He left him there and walked back through the floor. The air felt different, less polished, more personal. People were no longer just names in a spreadsheet. They had voices now. At noon, he drove to the Southbridge dispatch hub unannounced. The parking lot was full, but the office inside was barely staffed. A single woman sat at the front desk, her head in her hands. She didn't notice him until he spoke. Excuse me, are you the only one here? She looked up, startled. I'm covering dispatch, reception, and support today. Everyone else called out. Why? Overworked. 2 of them quit last week. Nobody's replaced them. What's your name? Renee. He walked behind the desk and glanced at the scheduling board. It was disorganized. Half the driver assignments were handwritten, the rest missing. Renee, you're doing the work of 4 people. That ends now. She blinked. Who are you? Carter Prescott. Her breath caught. She stood immediately. I didn't know you were coming. I didn't schedule it. I wanted to see things as they are. I'm sorry for the mess. I've been trying, you've held this place together, and no one noticed. That's not your fault. He picked up the phone and called Lauren. Send 2 support staff here. 1 IT, 1 dispatch. And bring Renee a full week of relief coverage. She doesn't leave this desk again today unless it's to go home. Renee sat down slowly, hands trembling. An hour later, Carter walked into the break room. It was small, with a flickering light and a vending machine missing half its inventory. 2 drivers sat in silence, eating from plastic containers. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. They looked up, confused, but nodded. He introduced himself. One was named Kian, the other Jessa. Kian had driven for over a year, usually overnight shifts. Jessa had just started 3 weeks ago, but was considering quitting. "This job burns people out," she said. "You're either driving nonstop or panicking about your next check. There's no in between." Kian nodded. "I've seen 5 people leave in the last 2 months. One guy had a panic attack in his car." "Did anyone ever follow up with you?" Carter asked. They both shook their heads. "I want to change that," he said. "We're setting up a new wellness team. Real support, mental health, financial planning, emergency backup. Not just words on a brochure." Jessa looked skeptical. "Will it actually happen?" "It already started yesterday." He stayed until the afternoon, reviewing operations and helping with dispatch calls. On his way out, he saw Renee standing outside with a coffee in hand. She looked different, lighter somehow. "Thank you," she said. "You shouldn't have had to wait this long." That night, Carter sent out a company-wide message. No press release. Just a direct video to every driver and staff member. He sat at his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie undone. "I've seen things I should have seen long ago," he said. "You've carried this company while people like me sat comfortably at the top. That ends now. I'm rebuilding this company around the people who make it run. You. Not profits, not growth projections, people. Starting with on-time pay, driver wellness, and zero tolerance for abuse or neglect. If you've been mistreated, you'll be heard. If you've gone above and beyond, you'll be seen. It's time we built something better together." He ended the video and hit send. By morning, the reactions began pouring in. Not all were positive. Some were skeptical. Others emotional. But they were real. And for the first time in a long time, Carter felt like he was leading something worth leading. Tomorrow, he'd meet with the training directors to overhaul the onboarding process. Then he'd visit the final 2 hubs. But tonight, he read every single response. One by one. By the end of the week, Carter had visited every dispatch hub personally. He didn't announce his stops in advance. He wanted to see the reality, not the version people polished up when they knew corporate was watching. At Southridge, he found a team hustling to keep up with ride demand, 1 tablet between 3 desk agents, phones ringing off the hook. At Rivergate, a driver coordinator was using his own laptop because their desktop hadn't worked in over a month. No one had reported it. They didn't think it would matter. Carter didn't make promises in those meetings. He gave deadlines. At Central HQ, a new policy board was installed in a shared hallway visible to everyone. Each sheet was dated, signed, and marked with a completion status. System upgrades. Payroll revisions. Driver support staffing. Nothing was hidden behind closed doors anymore. Still, the weight of the last 2 weeks hadn't settled. Not until Carter stepped into the small meeting room on the 3rd floor and closed the door behind him. Inside waited 3 people, Anya from finance, Mateo from driver support, and a woman named Kelsey, newly promoted to oversee dispatch operations statewide. She had started as a part-time scheduler 3 years earlier. Carter sat down, folding his hands in front of him. "Let's talk about what happens next," he said. Kelsey leaned forward. "We've filled 6 of the 15 open dispatch roles. It's slow going. People don't trust us yet. We don't need to rush hires," Carter said. "We need the right ones. What are we doing to make sure they're trained right?" "We're building from scratch," she said. "New training modules. New standards. No one starts unsupervised. And no one gets promotion access without clearance from HR and Ops." Mateo added, "Support tickets are back under 500. We were over 2,000 last week. We've got 3 full-time responders now. We're rotating shifts so no one burns out." Carter turned to Anya. Automated payouts are live, she said. No more manual holds. We've also flagged any adjustment over 5% for review. And there's an alert system if a driver goes unpaid longer than 72 hours. Carter nodded. And the drivers who were shortchanged? Paid. With interest. That was processed this morning. He took a breath. Good. Now we talk about accountability. Matteo looked hesitant. You sure we want to go public? It could hurt the brand. Carter kept his voice even. Cover-ups hurt brands. Not honesty. We're not here to protect a logo. We're here to protect people. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot below. A few drivers were parked there, waiting to pick up their next rider. One of them leaned against the hood of his car, eyes closed, earbuds in. It's not enough to fix the system, Carter said. We have to rebuild trust. That means owning our failures. In plain language. He turned around. I'll be doing a press briefing Monday. I'll speak directly to the drivers that built this company. We'll acknowledge what happened. Who caused it. And what we're doing to make sure it never happens again. Kelsey nodded. I'll stand with you. So will I, Matteo said. Anya gave a short nod. Same here. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Carter read every line of the company's internal procedures. He cut policies that had no measurable benefit. He rewrote others with input from people who actually used them. He also made a final decision: no more contract loopholes. All full-time drivers would be classified as employees going forward, eligible for health benefits, PTO, and legal protections. It would cost more, but it was the right thing. And he was done measuring value in dollars alone. Monday arrived. The press briefing was streamed live. No fanfare. No stage. Just Carter, standing in front of a simple podium in the dispatch training room of the Northwood Hub, the same place he'd first walked in as Eli. He didn't use a script. I want to speak to the people who kept this company moving when no one else was watching, he said. Drivers who showed up every day not knowing if they'd be paid on time. Dispatchers who stayed late without being asked. Support staff who were told to stay silent. He paused. We failed you. And I failed you. I saw the metrics and ignored the people. That won't happen again. He outlined every change: automated payouts, direct support lines, oversight protocols, employee classification. He named the managers who had been terminated. He didn't make excuses. And then he said what mattered most. You should never have had to endure what you did. But because you spoke up, because you stayed, we will do better. Not just today. Every day forward. He stepped back from the podium and walked off camera. The response was swift and mixed. Some called it corporate damage control. Others said it was the first time they'd ever heard a CEO take responsibility without deflecting. But what mattered most was what happened next. In the following weeks, driver applications rose not because of pay increases, but because word had spread: this was now a place where people mattered. Retention numbers began to climb, slowly but steadily. At the Westwood Hub, a new team lead named Jasmine implemented a rider respect protocol where drivers could report passenger abuse directly to dispatch, no questions asked. 3 drivers used it the first week. Jasmine followed up personally. At Rivergate, Carter returned unannounced. He sat in the break room with a group of drivers and listened as they talked about their families, their goals, their side hustles. No one asked why he was there. No one needed to. He was part of it now. On a quiet Friday night, Carter found himself walking through the Northwood lot again. The air was colder, the lot mostly empty. He spotted Harper, the woman who'd first warned him about the payout delays, standing by her car, sipping from a thermos. Hey, he said as he approached. She looked up, surprised. Didn't expect to see you here. I come by when I can, he said. Helps me stay grounded. You really shook things up. You were the first one who told me what was happening. I owe you? You don't owe me, she said. You listened. That's more than most ever do. Still, he said, reaching into his coat, I wanted to give you this. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was an offer letter, full-time employment status, a retention bonus, and a note from Carter himself. Her fingers tightened slightly on the paper. Thank you, she said. But don't think this means you can disappear again. I won't, he said. Not ever. She gave him a look, tired, honest, and unwavering. Good. Because we're not just cargo. We're not machines. We're people. I know, he said. And from now on, this company will be built around that truth. Carter walked back to his car. He didn't need the disguise anymore. He didn't need to go undercover again. He knew where he belonged. Among his people.